So this is our big crewing episode, Fatty. We have a lot of ground to cover here, and one of those areas will be what kind of tools to have in your pit.
Very important topic, Hottie. Tools are things you hope not to have to use on race day, but you want to have them on hand, whether that be in your pit or on your bike. And our supporter, Pro Bike, the same Shimano brand that makes saddles and other bike components, also has a really good selection of tools.
Yes, they do. I love that advanced toolkit, and in fact, I'm putting it down on my crew chief wish list. That kit comes with all the hex wrenches and necessary bike-specific tools you might need in your pit. The essentials for emergency repairs or taking care of your bike when you are on the road. It's all in there. And the kit comes in a case to make carrying it into Twin Lakes, for instance, from your car a little easier.
Oh, I appreciate that kind of thing for you. Pro also has multi-tools for on-the-bike fixes. That is what I have. And they are very handy and sometimes necessary for every mountain biker. Look, it's a little late to make a tool order in time for this year's Leadville 100. So be like Hottie and put the advanced toolkit and a multi-tool on your wish list in time for your next event, or birthday or anniversary or whatever gift-giving holiday of your choice. You can check out all of Pro Bike's tools at pro-bikegear.com.
3, 2, 1.
Leadville, the podcast for the 100-mile mountain bike race presented by Shimano. Find them at bike.shimano.com. It is Season 5, Episode 23 of the show that breaks down, builds up, gets you ready, freaks you out for the highest, hardest one-day mountain bike race in the country. I'm Michael Houghton, Hottie to most, crew chief to some, and this is our crewing episode, so I'm crew chief to everyone for this show, and we're going to break down how to pull off a successful stop at the Leadville Trail 100.
And I am Fatty, and I am in Leadville, currently in a closet where I'm recording this next few episodes. I did the stage race and thought, what the heck? I think I'll stay here and make a vacation of it. I'm staying through the Leadville 100 race weekend. You're probably hearing this episode with about a week to go before the race. And if that's the case, then you likely can still make our group ride on Thursday, August 11th. The ride leaves at 9 a.m. from the Ice Palace Park. You can look that up on Google. It will be a chill pace to St. Kevin's and then back down to town via the boulevard. You're going to see the beginning and end of the race.
And then that afternoon at 5 o'clock, we're doing a live version of this show at the expo. You are invited to either the ride or both, the ride and the live show. It's going to be a lot of fun, so make your plans. And thanks to Lifetime for setting us up at the expo for our live show.
In our How to Crew at Leadville discussion, you're going to hear us talk about the importance of wearing easy-to-see clothing. And when we say easy to see, we mean easy to see from a distance in a crowd of similarly dressed people.
Yeah, Fatty, I saw pics of you at the stage race with the orange Leadville podcast jersey from DNA on, so I'm assuming that is going into the wash and will be reserved for race day.
You're 100% right on that, Hottie. What you can't see in that is I love that kit so much that I had new decals made for my bike that match the kit. So you're going to love it when you see it, trust me. I actually bought 2 of this kit, the orange and black one, and that way I always have one clean. Folks, if you want to see what DNA can do for you and to make you a kit that you love so much that you model your bike design and colors after it, check out some of the pics of me at the stage race in this show's custom DNA kit. The color pattern is like no other on the course, made me very easy to see, and the graphics DNA designed onto that jersey blend in perfectly with the podcast, and it's easy to read.
I can add that standout jerseys are also great for road racers. I mean, picking out your teammates in a crowded elbow-to-elbow crit can be a valuable tool. Whatever kind of racing you do, DNA has a custom kit to match. Get started on your creation by going to dnacycling.com.
Since this is the crewing episode, we will be discussing your feeds And so it's a good time for us to talk about what the feed can do. First, we want to thank the feed for supporting our pre-race group ride and doing those custom printed bottles and handing out free goodies.
Second, while this show will go over your feeds for this one race, the feed can take care of your ongoing needs throughout the year without all the planning and detail we are about to go over here. The feed makes it really easy to keep up with your sports nutrition needs throughout the year.
Yep, all you got to do is hop onto their website, pick out what you like and what you would like to try, and the feed will put it all in a single box and get it to you ASAP. If you don't know where to start or you need some help, the feed has nutrition experts on hand to help. It's kind of like having a virtual crew chief.
Oh, I like that. There are a lot of stresses that come with training and racing. Do yourself a favor and get rid of one by signing up with the feed and let them take care of your training and race food and drink needs. Put all your favorites on auto renewal. No going to stores, no running out of stuff, one less thing to think about. Man, makes me want to race again myself. Claim your $80 in annual credit at thefeed.com/Leadville. Register your email, verify your phone number, then spend your first feed credit of $20 right away. All right, Fatty, as promised, this is our big crewing episode. We actually did this before. I can't even remember what season we did it, but it's such important information that we thought it was worth repeating. Plus, some things have slightly changed over the years. We've kind of learned a few things. And additionally, you said, hey, bring Mrs. Hottie on. Everyone wants to hear from Mrs. Hottie since she's like this crewing icon in Leadville, which I have a little gripe with, and I'll take that up with you later. This is not the time or place for that, but Mrs. Hottie is here. She's right here in the same room with me. And like you're in Leadville. You're lost after the stage race, trying to recover from that. So we're going to break down crewing for you folks in a big way. And in fact, we've got a nice outline for you that you'll be able to download at some point and have that as kind of a cheat sheet, as little crib notes for you. I'd also prepared, Fatty, this entire diatribe about how Mrs. Hottie and I have done a lot of crewing over our careers. Obviously, I've raced, and she's crewed for me, and she's crewed on the road for me, and I've crewed at Leadville, and I've crewed at I said, the hell with that. What people want to hear about is about crewing. They want to hear about how to crew at Leadville. So that's what we're going to get focused on. And by the way, Fatty, I've pulled out our sheets from last year that Mrs. Hottie and I made so we could crew properly for Team Fatty, right? We've got, I don't know how many we have here, Mrs. Hottie. By the way, Mrs. Hottie's name is Veronica, so I'll probably refer to her as Veronica, not Mrs. Hottie, if you don't mind.
That's okay, Mike.
Is that okay?
It's okay.
Okay, great.
Veronica, Mrs. Hottie, it all works for me.
Do you remember all this stuff we wrote down?
Yes, sir.
Look at this. I have like Lisa's, this must be Lisa's outbound feed at Twin Lakes. We had her ETA here, 3 to 3.5 hours till she reached us at Twin Lakes. 1 bottle with Goo Tab, remove Camelback, add Camelback with H2O, 4 rocket lights, 1 Coke during the stop, offer her pills, offer her chews, fill packs with water, bento boxes where the food goes. Look at that. Those are all great notes that we took, and we have, I don't know how many pages of these for Lisa the Hammer, for Fatty, for Melissa. I think we have Rowitz in here as well. So dug out our old notes just for fun, right? Because that's what you do, folks. You have to be super prepared to run what I like to call, and what Mrs. Hottie likes to do, is a Formula One pit stop for your racers. You want them in and out as fast as possible. I think, Fatty, we had you in and out the first year we crewed for you in a minute or less, if I'm not mistaken.
Less than a minute, I think.
Less than a minute?
Half a minute, if I remember.
I think I did the same for our buddy Sean up at Barn Burner. I mean, we were turn and burn, man, getting him in and out of there so he could get a good qualifying time and move up in corrals for the next year. So folks, we're going to break this down, this big crewing episode, into, I guess, 4 sections. We're going to break it down into where to be, what to do, what to bring, and execution. I think that sounds like a good plan, right? Every crew plan should have a plan, and this is our plan for you folks. So let's start off, Andy, with where to be, right? Where to station your crews. And they're pretty obvious. There's 2 big spots. You got Pipeline and you got Twin Lakes. Now, there's a caveat with Twin Lakes because there's a Twin Lakes alternate, but you have to try and figure out where you want your crew. Pipeline or Twin Lakes or both. And it's my opinion, and I think Mrs. Hottie and now Fatty's as well, that you should try and staff both.
Yeah, I think if at all possible, you want to run a zone defense, right? Is the way that I've heard it described. It is a busy pair of aid stations, and getting from one place to another is complicated with all of the parking. And I understand that even with the shuttles, you should not plan on being able to move between the two aid stations in a timely enough manner that you can take care of your racer at both places.
Yeah, so we have, for the past several years, stationed people at both Pipeline and Twin Lakes alternate. In fact, we've even had backup people on the Twin Lakes Dam. So technically, we've stationed or we've crewed or we've had people at all three of the official feed zones. And I know what people are saying. They're saying, well, I only have one crew pass. Where do I go? I mean, I've seen a lot of this chatter on the participants page. Where do I go? What do I do? Where do I go? And there's a couple of answers to that. First and foremost, you team up with another racer. Then you effectively have two passes. You put half your group of crew people at Pipe and the other at Twin Lakes, and you got everything covered. But you got to be willing to kind of share the workload, communicate, work that way. The other thing to do, and this was a little tip from our buddy Ryan Cross at Lifetime, is you can now use the shuttles to effectively cover both Pipeline and Twin Lakes. So if you have enough crew for your single racer to go to both, but you only have one crew pass, what you can do is have half your crew shuttle to one of the two locations, say it's Pipeline, and then the other half use the crew pass to, say, go out to Twin Lakes. And now you have both Pipe and Twin Lakes covered, which again is our recommendation, that you try and station both. And why are you thinking, well, geez, what happens at Pipeline in the morning? You never know. I mean, our point is it's insurance. And if you've got somebody coming down power line and they've broken a spoke or they've gotten a flat or they've had trouble or they want to just ditch stuff, at least you have somebody there at Pipeline outbound to tend to their needs. These spots, maybe you don't know them. Maybe you do. Maybe you know Pipeline and Twin Lakes. Either way, we think it's a good idea that you go and recon the feed zones. Go have a look at both of them. Like, okay, where would we like to be, right? We did this
the very first time we did this race together. Didn't know what we were doing. We were clueless. And Twin Lakes is the best option. A lot of space. You know, there's the food there. The neutral feed zones. But there's also very distinctive tents. A lot of companies have stuff up there, so you can find your spot. Maybe let you and your rider go out there early, the day before, 2 days before, and just check out what it looks like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that way you get a little, picture in your mind. Both your rider and your crew, like, okay, we'd like to be here. Hopefully, we can be in this area, and you kind of pencil in a spot where you think you'd like to be. And then, by the way, you know what else I forgot? Speaking of stationing areas, and this is another kind of one that I love to do, and that is be at the start line. Like, I like to have a crew member at the start line. And again, if you have enough people to go around and you've teamed up with enough crew, having somebody at the start line is also not a bad idea. That way, your rider, like Fatty, I've been there for you. You've been able to throw stuff to me. I've been able to relay messages from my crew members who are already down at the Pacific Zone. Like, yeah, they're there. They're at the spot that we pre-planned for, so having somebody at start. Fatty, what do you think? Do you like having a crew member at the start line?
Yeah, I really loved being able to toss you my the track pants that I was wearing to stay warm in, the jacket that I had was wearing at the starting line so that I would be able to use them again this year. Even before that, though, Hottie, something that was very valuable to some of our racers who were not able to go and scout out the areas where you were going to be crewing is, I remember last year you and Mrs. Hottie took a lot of pictures of the spot that you had chosen, down the road, up the road, coming to the spot that you had picked, so that the racers who were going to be having you crew would be able to have a good mental image of where they would find you. That was very valuable. And then sort of along the point that you were making about having someone from the crew be at the starting line, awesome idea. Something that is we've pointed out before is that the poor cell towers of Leadville and Twin Lakes, even worse, simply cannot handle phone calls from the thousands of people. Texting is your best bet of getting a message to, between crew who are in different places on race day.
So again, having somebody at the start line is great. Of course, you're thinking, oh, how's that person at the start line then get to one of the crew locations? They're going to need a crew pass. Yes, that circles back to our whole thinking that you want to try to team up with at least one other rider. A third is great. Then again, you have effectively 3 passes and you just have much more mobility, if you team up with somebody else. That is ideal. Again, the shuttles are there and you can use those. Pipeline. Now for pipeline, first of all, you want to send, if you are staffing pipeline, it's a good idea to send that crew member out early. Send them out before the gun goes off. That way they get out of town and they get there. Because again, that's the first place that your rider is going to go through. And it takes, depending on the speed of the rider, if they're a fast rider, they can get there in an hour and 45 minutes, like if they're good hauling. And then maybe a little after 2 hours would be the kind of the latest you'd see somebody through there. So if you're going to staff pipeline, the advice here is to send them early before the shotgun. In fact, if you're going to staff Twin Lakes and you've got enough passes to go around, man, send that Twin Lakes crew out early. You did that last year, right?
Yeah, last year, that was the first year we did it where everyone went to their specific zone, pipeline and alternate Twin Lakes early. You were at the start. We all went. Sun was rising. Everyone got there, took photos of the space I was in, back to you. You relayed it to Fatty. It worked out perfectly, and everyone was in place, no problem, no parking issues, etc. So it worked great.
All right. So again, to recap this where to be segment. Ideally, you're at the start finish. You've got a crew at pipeline. You got a crew at Twin Lakes. And remember the dam. Again, we talked about trying to get out of town. Specifically, this is for people who want to be on the dam. Like, it gets backed up there on the dam, and you can end up parking a long ways away and hoofing it quite a ways, if you wait too long to kind of get away from 6th and Harrison in your car or on the shuttle, whatever you're going to do, and get down there. So, get a jump to get down there. Again, so start, finish. If you can crew start, finish, or have somebody at start, finish, plan to have somebody at pipeline, plan to have somebody at Twin Lakes, you are very likely to have a successful day of crewing. Let's move to our next big section of how to crew to win, and that is your pre-race meeting. You're organizing. Veronica loves to brag about organizing. These big sheets I have here.
That's why Fatty and I get along. He has a Excel spreadsheet on exactly what he wants, when he wants it. Everyone else has just it all in their head, but either way, it works.
Yeah, well, I write things down too. I'm just not like you two. Like, I don't do a proper outline with 1A, B. I scribble things down. So I get it. You do want to be organized, and that is the whole point of having a pre-race meeting, a crew rider meeting. Whether you have riders or rider, I don't care. If it's just one, you think you may know each other, you don't until you sit down and talk specifics. And that is the point of having a pre-race meeting with your crew and your rider. And if it's more than one rider, by the way, that you're feeding, what I have done in the past and what I think Veronica has done well is you have kind of a general meeting with all your riders. Say you're feeding 4 riders or 3. Sit them all down at once and just talk about, general stuff like where we plan to be. Like if you're going to be a pipeline in Twin Lakes that we talked about earlier. Just general stuff, course conditions or what have you. Just general stuff. And then after you have kind of a general short meeting, maybe 10, 15 minutes, then meet with each racer individually. If you're a crew, all your crew sit down and you sit the one rider down and you all sit there and talk about what that racer is going to do, how fast they're going to be, what kind of feeds they want.
But write it down.
Yeah.
Because you may not, you say, oh, yeah, a couple gels of this and put in a Ziploc and write outbound, inbound, but you have to write it down because you will not remember the morning of, you wake up early, you're there, you're unpacking, the stress, the cyclists start coming, they come in, and then you start getting anxious. When are they coming? You need to write everything down.
Right. So there shouldn't be just one note taker for the crew. Like if you've got a crew of 3 or 4 people, each person should write down notes as the one rider is saying exactly what they want. And then what we did afterwards is we sit down away from the riders and we rewrite our notes. because they're all scribbled and messy and everything like that. They don't look like anything. So then you right there while it's still fresh in your mind, you rewrite your notes for each writer. In fact, you and I just kept our separate notes too. We always had our own sheets, and we cross-reference them back in the feed zone or whatever, and just make sure we're always on the same page with that stuff. So again, you're having a pre-race meeting, and if you have a big group, then have a group meeting, and then meet with each racer individually and write down everything, and then rewrite your notes, clean everything up, and rewrite your notes. And by the way, you want to tell, one thing you can do at the group meeting or with the riders individually is tell the racer what you as a crew member will be wearing, so they know what to expect, so they know what they're going to see as they come. Now, they might be a little like, Fatty will tell you, I'm just high on altitude when I'm at Leadville. I don't remember much, but hopefully it'll sink in like, oh yeah, Mrs. Hottie is wearing that bright yellow Leadville podcast jersey. I'll remember to look for that as they start to approach, Twin Lakes.
And you do see that out there, especially at the main one, Twin Lakes, or even an alternate. You've got families all in orange, or they all have Green Bay Packers flags, or whatever it is that's distinctive to you. So if you want to, be the American tent with American flags everywhere because everyone just brought their 4th of July gear out because they had it and they want to, then yep, that's your tent. Or if they're all in pink, or if they're all in just something distinctive, and that and actually it turns into like fun. People get excited about it.
Racers, first of all, as you're writing down their notes, so you're having your individual racer meeting. You have to demand as the crew member that the racer be very specific about what they want. Like, what is it? Not just, well, just lay some food out and I'll grab it. You want them to commit right there. Because what you're trying to do is you don't want your racer to come in and lollygag around. Look, I learned this from our great friend Rebecca Rush a long time ago, after I first tried to race the Leadville 100 and I failed the big buckle when I should have. I had the fitness to, and I asked her, I said, what's the difference between 9:20 and a sub 9? Oh, she said, oh, that's easy. Your crew time, how much time you spend in a feed. You have to nail that. And you will. And she was absolutely right. And what does that come down to? Like, what does a lot of it come down to? Well, it comes down to just being organized and being specific about what you want at each stop along the way. And you have to communicate to that crew, and the crew should be demanding that from the racer in this meeting. Ask them, no, I want to know, how many gels do you want? What pockets do you want them in? Where should I expect to find trash? And what kind of trash do you want them to empty? How many bottles do you want moved in and out? What do you want in your fresh bottles? Like, all of that stuff you want to be absolutely. If you watch Formula One racing, they don't pull the car in and go, hey, do you need a right front tire? Do you need a new nose piece on the car? They don't do anything. That stuff they know right away what's happening. That's how they do sub 2 second pit stops, because, they drill this stuff. And while we're not doing F1 here, we are trying to get riders in and out in a timely fashion. So, having them be specific at the meeting is very, very important.
Exactly. And it's easy to do. They can just say, this is the food I want on me. This is the food I want to intake. There's like actually 3. Food I want on the bike, in and off. You want to know what do you want to do when you're standing right there? You're stopped, you're breathing. You want a Twinkie? Do you want pickle juice? Do you want carrot juice? Do you want a bag of M&Ms? What do you want that's just going to make you happy before you start that climb? Maybe lube. You want to make sure anything that they want for you to do when they stop, they have to tell you, and so that you're prepared and that we're prepared and ready to do it.
Including things to ask, I think, is worth pointing out. We've mentioned a couple of times that when I come into a feed zone, I am absolutely nonverbal. I am hardly able to even, if you were to ask my name, I might stammer a bit. But I ask you to remind me or ask me, do you want to take off your arm warmers? Oh yeah, it's getting hot. Get rid of these things. Do you want a swig of Coke before you go? Do you have a headache? Do you need an Advil? Questions like that. And let's not get into whether ibuprofen's okay during races. Let's say it is not. But there are a few questions that you are likely to want answers to. make sure you, in that race, crew to racer meeting, tell your crew what you not just want to be given and to be taken away, but what you want to be asked, because you're not going to be smart enough in the moment to suggest it yourself.
Absolutely. So have the racer be specific about what they want and have them prepare that feed, hopefully, for your meeting. So they can just hand it to you. Now, they may not want to fill their bottles if you're doing the meeting on a Thursday night, but have everything laid out and bagged and labeled. We bring gaffer's tape and ink pens, Sharpies, so we can write stuff on bottles and on bags with each racer's feed. It'll say like fatty, outbound, TL for Twin Lakes. And we put all the gels and all the food in there. And if he hands us a USWE pack, we take the gaffer's tape and put it right on the USWE pack, fatty, out, TL. And so that way we know what goes to whom at what particular juncture in the race, and there's no foul. Well, sometimes there's foul-ups, but hopefully you don't have a foul-up then. So again,
you for sure reduce them.
Yeah, you're trying to create an opportunity for success here with all this stuff.
Setting the sort of the perspective from the racer of what this meeting is like is it actually was like a series of meetings. Like, so we get together with all of the racers that the crew is supporting and all of the crew, meaning if you're doing the zone defense type, like we have suggested, someone at Twin Lakes, someone at Pipeline, there is the general conversation, and then essentially it works like a conveyor belt assembly line. It is, okay, Fatty, it is your turn to talk to Veronica and Hottie. And then, Fatty, it is your turn to talk to Blake, who was the crew chief for the Pipeline area, because it's different conversations. I want different things at different times of the day. So, in a way, it was a set of meetings, each person with alone time with their crew and each of their crew before we take off for the evening. So everyone gets together and has many meetings to get all of this nailed.
So have a meeting with your racer. Be specific with them. Tell them to be specific with you. Mrs. Veronica and I, we make a page for each rider for each direction. So there's specific instructions about Fatty's outbound feed and Fatty's inbound feed, and they're on individual pages. Don't try to mix everything up into one page. Make a page, use that script, and then put it aside. You won't need it anymore. The other thing we try to get from racers is a couple of things. Obviously, what they wear. We've talked about this on the show before. We want to know what they're wearing specifically. Like they don't go, if they start saying, I might wear this kit. No, commit to a kit, folks. You got to get them to commit to a kit so you know what to look for from a distance. Because again, you're trying to pick these folks up from a couple hundred yards away, and it gets a little blurry out there, right? Plus, everyone wants to wear the same thing. Black jersey, black bibs, black helmet. They all look the same. So get them to be specific about what they're wearing, especially, really what works too is helmet and helmet color and helmet brand. I can pick out helmet brands from 100 yards away. Shoes too, if they're sparkly shoes.
And also too, if you were in a pink, say pink kit, but then in the morning you're wearing a black vest. Just remember that they wore the black vest, or that you're wearing. Unfortunately, that might be coming in. You might have to look at that, just as a little FYI.
Yeah, I think we've talked about getting your rider to predict their time, and that's time of day they expect to be at your site, not their chip time or their splits. You want to know what time of day do you think you'll be there, and you can work that out. If they've got a split time they're working with, you can go ahead and extrapolate that out to a time of day and write that down. It should be a range. Nothing specific, but you're looking at, I'm expecting to see them anywhere between 8:50 and 9 o'clock. Another thing you want to get from your racer is their plate number and their plate color. The plate color corresponds with what corral they're in. So if you start seeing like red plates moving through, you're like, okay, here come the red racers. Cool. And my racer is in purple. I should know to start picking up some purple plates pretty soon. So already you can start getting a heads up on when you might expect seeing your next feeder or your only racer, whoever you're trying to feed. So plate number, plate color, and write that down on your sheets. Yeah.
And don't forget bike color, right? You guys will both be very happy to know that I have a bright orange laser helmet. My kit is, the podcast kit orange. My bike is orange. I am in Hunter Orange this time. You guys are going to be able to point me out from a mile and a half away.
Now, the other thing that racers will probably want to try to put with you is some emergency stuff, right? And we're going to get to gear and what to bring as far as tools and stuff. But individual racers may have, just as a backup plan, they may want to have, who knows, a spare set of gloves on hand. That's not really specific to their feet or what they know they're going to need, but maybe some backup stuff, and that's totally fine. You put that maybe emergency jacket, a skull cap, gloves, sunglasses, what have you, in a bag with their name on it. Or what the great thing that Fatty and Lisa and Melissa did is they kind of put together a community bag that anybody could be grabbed from. There were some gels in there, some food type items. So that was kind of cool to have as kind of a backup thing. They all know it's there in case they come in and go, oh, things are going to hell on me, or I forgot this, or I dropped something, or what have you. And you've kind of got it in that emergency backup bag. So not part of the specific feed, but something that works as a backup. That's another nice bonus thing, I think, to have. Should you need it. What else do we have here? So that's the just-in-case stuff. And again, this is all part of your pre-race meeting and planning portion. And you're doing this hopefully on Thursday, maybe on Friday if need be, as you get ready to race on Saturday morning. The final thing I like to ask racers, if they want, most of them do, unless they're taking a hand up, is a push out of the pit, like a push out of the feed zone, which I first learned about at Leadville. Like, man, somebody pushed me out of a pipeline once, and boom, I was right back with my group, and I loved it. So giving a push, asking the racer if they would like a push, I think most will say yes, and it's just a matter of knowing how to do it. Like, I always try to not push them on their body because you don't want to push them off their saddle. Sometimes it's unavoidable, and you get pushing them on their backside a little bit. Just don't be afraid. Get under there. I like to try to get the saddle if I can. Don't want to push on the saddle pack because you might push that off, but kind of push them on the backside of their saddle because that's nice and solid and you can push them out. Fatty, you like to push?
Oh, please, give me a push. Push me all the way to the top of Columbine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so that takes care of our meeting, right? Our pre-race meeting. We should be all good to go. Again, as a crew member, you're going to go home, rewrite your notes, maybe have a little meeting with your crew members, just off to the side. Just make sure you're all on the same page. Swap phone numbers with everyone if you're in a crew of multiple people, so you can try and text, which is always a little dicey in Leadville, but at least you have those numbers and you can try to communicating can happen. It does work for a while in Leadville on race day, but eventually you'll see it kind of bogged down on you. That takes care of your meeting. Now, what you'll need, what to bring, what to pack as you head out to your specific crew zones. This can be, there's some room for interpretation here about what you think you'll need. Some people are minimalists. They just could go out there with a backpack and pull off a perfectly fine feed. There is obviously sun to deal with and crew members standing in the sun, and that can be kind of tough. So one thing that we love having as crew members is an easy up, which I think is a funny name for them because they're not easy to put up, but they sure are nice to have to kind of set camp, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And even people that are independent and have their own little bags and they don't have an easy up, people share. So it's always nice to have one. If you've got one, take it.
So an easy up is a nice one to have. I think I already said this, gaffer's tape and Sharpies for labeling stuff. That is a nice little supply to bring with you to Leadville. I wouldn't depend on or expect to be able to buy it in town. So bring that with you if you can. A cooler with ice. I mean, again, I think this is almost a no-brainer, right? Keeping drinks cool is a nice little bonus for the racer and for the crew members.
And for the crew members.
Right. So having a cooler filled with ice, go get your ice the night before. And put all those drinks on ice so you can hand your racer. Even a Camelback bladder can go in the ice. You just got to remember to pull it out, get it in the pack before your racer shows up. You don't want to be struggling with that as they're sitting in the pit there. So you can put all that stuff on ice and have a nice cool bottle for your rider. And another, the heat really crept up on us last year, Fatty. And we were handing out cool towels. We kind of ad-libbed that, I think.
Yeah, it was. We dipped them into the melting ice of the cooler, and I think we wiped down all the dust and everything. And I think everyone liked that.
Yeah, and we sent them away, I think, with the wet towel around their neck or something like that. And at least Lisa took one. I don't know if you got one of those, Fatty, but it seemed to go a long ways to helping out with that, that kind of unusually warm day in Leadville. Camp chair, something to sit in for your crew. And sometimes your racer has just had it. They want to get off for a second and sit down. Don't let them, right? But
don't let them.
Having a couple, I don't sit much, but I guess having a couple camp chairs around for crew members is not a bad idea, so they can take a load off for a bit. But don't go to sleep. And these things happen quicker than you think. Man, suddenly here come the riders, and you're on your feet and you're ready to execute your plan. Now, I'm going to run quickly through repair stuff because you could build a really long list of repair stuff, and you just got to know where to cut it off at a certain point. Like, if you're thinking about bringing a work stand out there and, a tub of wax to wax a chain, like that's probably a bit much, right? As much as I love chain waxing, that's a bit much. But I think there are some nice things to have and some must-haves. Like wheels, spare wheels. First of all, you have to ride the bike that you started with. You can't change out an entire bike, but you can change wheels. So Fatty usually has wheels, and I usually take those to Twin Lakes with me. I've changed a wheel at Leadville before because I just wasn't trusting my sealant at a certain point. So I've changed wheels there. They're nice to have. They're a bit cumbersome to carry around. They're kind of a pain. An extra tire, just a regular tire, I would say a used tire is actually better than a brand new tire because they'll go on easier. If a rider comes in, they've had a massive cut and they got 4 plugs in the tire and they really want to switch it out. Okay, a tire is not bad. I don't think it's a must. It's nice. I would say a used tire, though, is better than a brand new tire because it's just going to go on easier. Extra tube or tubes, not a bad idea. A Dynaplug, which is the plug tool, having one of those around. If your rider's been out on course, they've had to plug a tire multiple times. If you can hand them another one so they're just off and running with a fresh one, as opposed to trying to reload a Dynaplug or whatever kind of plug tool you have, that's not a bad idea to have around. A good thing to have. Hex wrenches. If you take them, make sure you've got 2 through 8 millimeter and a 25 Torx. 2 through 8 and a 25 Torx. Actually, I don't think I have the 8. Maybe I better get an 8.
I got one for you.
You got one for me. 8 will get, big bottom bracket, bolts undone if you're really getting a desperate situation. But 2 through 6 will handle most things. That 25 Torx, and even the 20 at times, but that 25 is starting to show up everywhere on bicycles. So make sure you've got something that can handle a 25 Torx, some type of loose bolt, right? Zip ties, I think, are great to have around. Never know. We're already talking about gaffer's tape, but I'm bringing duct tape. Duct tape can fix just about anything most things on a broken bike. I think you could repair a carbon frame with duct tape. It's so good. So I would have duct tape around. Sealant, okay. You might be able to add some sealant. Again, these are all things that are going to really eat into a rider's time. If they have to stop and put sealant in a tire or something like that, they're really starting to slow down at that point. Lube is an obvious one, right? We want lube, dry drivetrains, dry, noisy drivetrains. A noisy drivetrain is the sound of watts just going out of a bicycle. You're just throwing away watts. So anything you can do to loosen up a grimy, awful, noisy drivetrain is going to be a plus for the rider, even if it costs them a few extra seconds in the pit. Trust me, they'll thank you a mile down the road. Like, thank God I lubed up, because you can feel it right through the pedal. So I would say lube and a good rag are a must. And regarding lubing, like, this is something to kind of practice. If you don't know, if you're a new feeder, if you've never lubed a chain, take a second. Riders, show your crew members how to do it. A pump is a great idea. A floor pump, for that matter. Have a pump on hand. Often people will have slow leaks, right? They'll have slow leaks, or maybe they've dealt with as a flat and they just didn't get enough CO2 in, or what have you. They pull on. You can pump up real fast with a floor pump. They're the most efficient way to get air back in. Unless you have a compressor stationed out there, which I doubt you will. So no compressors. I don't know, shift cable. Yeah, again, I've seen shift cables break. This is a maybe thing. Are you going to have the wherewithal to fix a broken shift cable? Maybe. Cycles of Life does station out there at Twin Lakes Alternate, and I would expect, now we haven't checked with them, but I bet you that, first of all, they're going to have a mechanic there. So if you have an inexperienced, I wouldn't even take on that job in a pit zone. I would say just stop there if you can. If you're riding single speed suddenly on your geared bike, I would stop there and see if they could do something for you. So that's a bonus thing, a shift cable. I would say a spare chain, a pre-sized spare chain is another bonus item. If you really are thinking that far ahead, okay, I'll have one actually, Fatty, but I don't, changing a chain in a pit, boy, that sounds like the pits to me. Or again, I mentioned repair stand. You'll see repair stands out there. Like some of the pro teams will have repair stands, kind of as a just in case thing, but I wouldn't bring one out really. Spare sunglasses, maybe not a bad idea. Although as a crew member, I'd probably just hand you mine, Fatty. And a spare helmet. I've never seen a helmet. You've had a failure that's kind of interesting. You had a seat post fail on you once?
I had a saddle
break.
I had the saddle rails break, and someone, my crew that year, scrambled, found the saddle on a bike they had been riding and brought it over, and I rode that for the rest of the day. Obviously not a perfect saddle, not a perfect fit, but I was able to finish the race. And so, yeah, I was grateful for that. And I think that is actually to a point that is, that's something Veronica brought up already, and that is, feel free to ask other crew people for help if there is something you need. Obviously, not everyone is going to bring a floor pump. If you see someone and you're trying to, furiously work on one of those tiny little mini frame pumps to inflate a cruise tire and you've got a floor pump, bring it over and help them out. And, if you've got a tire and you're willing to give it up, go ahead and do that. But I really love the community aspect of both the racers and the crews out there at Leadville.
Yeah, and in fact, I think we put a seat post with a saddle mounted on it in our bag last year, Fatty, for you, just in case.
Because of that.
I think we started covering that base. But again, I think I think it's a total bonus thing, So, did you have something you wanted to add on gear, Veronica?
Well, no, actually, the other bullet point of gear to bring is don't forget the crew needs their own feed.
Oh yeah,
you need to bring. Don't forget. They need to, they're so focused on, we're all so focused on our racers and we want them to do these times and we're a part of it, but don't forget to pack your own sandwiches and snacks and drinks. And if you're bringing the kids, a lot of times people bring toys and things and little tents for them because again, the sun can be so exposing. Sunscreen for yourself. You're going to be wearing layers. You're going to start out when it's cold to when it's really hot. So just make sure you take care of yourself too, because you can't have your riders show up to the pit stop and you're hungry and cranky. So you gotta make sure you have your backpack full of sweets and goodies too. So don't forget yourself.
So that handles gear and supplies. That's kind of sector number 3 here. Now we're on to execution of a stop. What to do when your rider comes in. You spotted them. Here they are. Veronica, I guess approach this from. Well, why don't you talk about if you've got a teammate, like it's you and me, like how do you like to carry out the execution of a stop?
Well, before they show up, we're obviously getting everything ready, putting their water packs into their camelbacks or whatever, getting the food, and deciding who's going to give the food, who's going to take out the bottles, who's going to have the lube in case he asks for the lube, have all the equipment that we know that Fatty or Lisa or whoever asked for already on their pit stop, have it all ready to go, either on the table or on the floor right there or on yourself. Put it in your pocket or wear a bike jersey and put the stuff in your actually in the back pockets. So when you're standing out there looking for your crew member, you see him, you spot him, you're ready to go, knowing that I'm going to be the one that they're going to ride up to and stop. You're going to be dumping trash, taking bottles out, putting new bottles. I'm going to be giving pickle juice and new food and a wipe for your face or whatever it is. Have a plan of action for at least split all the information that they gave us so that you're doing it like a Formula One crew.
Yeah. Again, I go back to the Formula One thing all the time. Like if you watch them, they have I don't know how many guys on each car when they come in, but each guy has a specific job and they all know what their job is. And the same model applies here, Fatty. Like your crew just goes, okay, here comes Fatty. Let's look at his list. I'll do this. You do that. I'll hold the bike and do these things. Veronica, you do these other things, and you kind of split the workload that way. So, it's efficient and you can get the rider move in and out. So divide the workload. And I would say, Fatty, how, like any more than 2 people on you at once, it would seem like too much, I'm guessing.
after two, a third person is most likely doing trivial tasks. If you've got a kid, absolutely give them a job. Your job is to pull out the bottles, right? And someone else's job is to put in the new bottles, right? So sure, you can go ahead and scale up so that everyone feels like they are doing something important. But the fact is, two people can get a racer in and out of a stop inside of a minute.
Anticipate your rider. We talked about this earlier. You've got their expected times. Hopefully you've been watching number plates and you have an idea that, okay, I think my rider might be coming. You want to try to start looking down trail or the riders as they're coming at you and try to start picking up people. Maybe you have an idea who they were around when they left. Obviously, we talked about number plate color, so anticipate your rider so you know that, okay, if the time has come, here comes our rider. You've got their feet all laid out. You've got if you're two people working on a rider, you've decided who's going to do what, and you're anticipating. And then, like we just said, make yourself visible. Get out there kind of stick yourself out there on the trail a little bit. Make yourself visible, wave and yell. But there comes a point when you want to stop waving and yelling, and that's when your rider gets close and you want to start calming down and guide your rider. Now, if you're on that Twin Lakes
I was going to say, if you're
double
on
track,
the single track or the double track, make sure that you pull them off of the single track because they are one side that people are already coming back. If you're a later on feeder, or there's just people behind them. So you need to get off of the trail. And there's enough room. There's totally enough room. Just make sure when you set your camp that you give a little space and your camp is set back a little bit so your rider can kind of ride onto your campsite area there so that they're not in the way of the racer behind them.
Yeah. Fatty, did you have a preference? We set up for you once on the double track at Twin Lakes Alternate, and then last year we were on Lost Canyon Road proper where there's a much more room. Did you favor one over the other for stopping?
I for sure preferred Lost Canyon Road. It's a little bit wider, and you had it so it is right after we make the right turn, so I had not built up enough speed that I had to shrug any speed off, right? I was able to more or less just, quick tap of the right brake, put a foot down, and you guys were at it.
Then you're going to, as you get your rider into your pit, you're going to start just executing your plan, right? Clear the pockets of trash, refill the bottle, or put the bottles in the cages, fresh bottles in, old bottles out, everything that you had written down. That's when you start executing this plan. Someone needs to ask about bike performance. Sometimes a rider forgets that their chain is skipping around or some bike is making noise or brakes are rubbering or what have you. Don't know if you can do anything about that, but just check in. Just make sure, hey, is the bike okay? Are you okay? Somebody needs to do that. Good feed, we already talked about, takes less than a minute. Like this thing happens really fast. And that's not a bad goal, I think, for everyone. It's like we want to shoot for under 60 seconds. In and out and under 60 seconds is...
And you can actually be quick even if you have a rider that needs to jump behind and go pee or do something. A lot of people have bento boxes and other bags on their bike now. You can get their bike all ready to go, lube it up if they're running off to the field to pee real quick. You could still make it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and again, be ready for that. Your rider may need to urinate. They've been drinking a lot, and so they may need to go jump somewhere. In fact, when you scout your location, kind of keep that in mind. Like, okay, if they need to go somewhere, I think somebody held up a jacket or something.
No, I keep beach towels. I bring out a beach towel or a blanket or something that you may have there, and I just kind of held it up.
You are full service, Veronica. That is amazing.
For one of our female, I think it was Lisa or Melissa. I don't know who it was. So it's all, we got it all.
And then once you've, executed this plan, you've done all the feeding, it's time to get the rider out of the pit. Now, for the folks who have not ridden bikes before, the rider, you want to let the rider get settled back over the top tube and get 1 foot clipped in. And you'll hear them engage that foot, and they'll probably start to initiate the forward motion. Let them go ahead and initiate, and then you just get in behind them. And as you feel them start to push off, just start to offer assistance. You don't have to shove or offer the first thrust of power. They're going to supply that power with their dominant leg as they start pushing down on that pedal. Allow them to start pushing the bike forward or start moving it forward with the pedals, and you just assist, and you're just adding power. You're almost like a little turbocharger at that point. You start adding power as you kind of hold underneath their saddle and push them forward, and just keep cheering. Keep offering encouragement as any last words you might want to give them as they start going up Columbine, or if they've come off Columbine, they're heading back towards Pipeline, what have you. That they're in and out that fast, and they're hopefully got nice momentum, and everything has gone as planned.
Love it.
Okay, what else do we have here? Oh, I feel like I've been in the feed zone already. It's tiring. I think that covers the 4 main points we wanted to cover, right? Mm-hmm. We've got, recon, where to go, recon that thing, recon those zones, have your race meeting, hopefully, Thursday or Friday, gear and supplies, what to bring, and then, of course, execution of your stop. I just have some, kind of some final notes here. We talked about cell service, right? Cell service can suck. You can, again, I found that, when I was texting with Blake, Fatty, he and I early on, he was able to tell me as you folks came through, pipeline outbound, I knew about it in real time. Those texts were making it through. But anything beyond that, boy, it was getting pretty rough because, the number of feeders start to fill at these feed zones. Everyone starts getting on their cell phones and going on Instagram or whatever the hell they are doing. So cell service will degrade quickly.
Yeah, don't count on Find a Friend as being a tool that you can use to know when your racer is coming in. In other words, right? You're not going to be getting that kind of service.
I would say keep texting, though, because I know I was able to tell Blake after Melissa came through. Melissa yelled at me, tell Blake I'm going to I forget what it was, at Pipeline. And I was able to get that message through to him. It was a delay, but it got to him in time so he could act on that information. So I would say keep doing it. What else do I have here? Hands up. Yes, for fact. I don't even know why I wrote that down. Did I write that down?
Hand ups.
Oh, hand ups. Oh, hand ups. Sorry, that is my writing. Hand ups. Yes. I would say that faster riders, if you're going for a big buckle, I used to not say this, but I do now. I would say that you should consider doing a hand up, at least at one of your feed zones. They can be, especially if you think you're going to want to stay with some. Obviously, anybody who is going for a podium or is a pro or any of that, a hand up is definitely something you should consider, but you should practice it. And something that Mrs. Hottie and I think we thought of this a spur of the moment because Melissa said, I want a hand up. I want to hand up at Twin Lakes, inbound, outbound, and inbound. She wanted one. So we're like, okay, we want to do a hand up, but we don't want to mess it up.
Well, we also, was it before or after where we saw one of the pro teams?
Blow it?
Blow it.
Oh, yeah. I don't know which it was, but they blew it.
Yeah,
we won't say which team and which rider, but twice the same guy dropped a bottle on a pro and he had to stop and retreat and get it. So what Mrs. Hottie and I came up with, if you're going to do a hand up, it's best to double team your hand up. And here's how we executed it for Melissa. So I was the main hand up person and I had the bottle that she gave to us at the pre-race meeting, but we stationed Mrs. Hottie down trail about 100, 200 yards from me in case I missed the hand up with a second bottle, with a backup bottle, if you will. So if I blew it, Melissa had a second shot at a bottle down trail. So ideally, that's what you're going to do. If you're going to do hand ups because the rider's moving and you don't want them to miss their bottle and you don't want them to stop, ideally what you're going to do is have 2 people on the hand up style feed so you can, not mess that up. If you miss it twice, well then, oh well. But so double team your hand ups.
It's worth noting that Melissa was working on a pro women's podium spot. And those are the people who need a hand up, right? Most of us can stop, put a foot down, and with confidence be out of the pit real fast and don't need to worry about doing something dicey that you and your crew have not tried before and, grab a musette bottle or a musette in a bottle and so forth. Hand ups are for people who really are contesting a serious prize money podium, right? Let's talk about rules for a second, if we can, because I think it is worth noting where it is and where it is not okay to crew for your racer. The answer is pretty simple. It is okay at Twin Lakes Dam, at Pipeline, and at Twin Lake Dam Alternate. Otherwise, it is not okay. You see people every year doing a little bit of sketchy crewing for folks as they go up the Turquoise Lake Road, up toward Carter's. You see people doing it at the fish hatchery. And I assume they're getting away with it, but that doesn't mean that they're always going to get away with it. At some point, someone is going to get DQ'd for taking a crew outside of one of the official crew zones. And as the race gets more and better contested, I think it becomes more and more likely that that is going to happen to someone. And you don't want your race to be ruined because you took a bottle at the fish hatchery.
Okay, like we said, we'll have these notes available online. We'll get that URL to you shortly, our little outline here. But Fatty, I think we've this crew show is longer than a crew meeting should be. So
it is. The URL for where you can get the notes will be leadville.fm/crew. It's that easy.
No riders. There's riders coming.
Go, go, go.
All right, we got Fatty through with a good stop. I'm out of breath. Well, like we said in that big crewing episode there, yes, we put wheels in the pit, and indeed those wheels are Envy wheels. That's just how many sets Fatty has. Makes me think, Fatty, you work for Envy or something?
I don't. It's just that the wheels last forever, Hottie. And also, I do live pretty close, and that is one thing that is worth mentioning about Envy, and that is they make their wheels right there in Ogden, Utah. These are American-made wheels, and that is important. Recently, I went to Envy HQ to get to know them a little bit better and to get an idea from someone who does work there how they would build a bike for Leadville. Jeremy Venz is CEO of Envy. He has been there since the first days of that company, and this is us talking about what he would build for a Leadville race bike. If you were building a bike for the Leadville racer, what wheels, stem, bar would you set up?
So if I was riding Leadville personally, I am an enthusiast and I enjoy riding greatly. I am not a true racer by any means. So I'm going to build a bike that is efficient yet comfortable and fun for myself. For that distance, I'm guessing I would probably run a 120 mil travel bike. I'm going to put on an M6 riser bar with 25 millimeters of rise because I don't want to be hunched over all day. I want to have some be able to breathe and see around. And I'm going to run an M525 wheel set. It's lightweight, it's durable, it's strong. It offers our best technology and pinch flat protection and is just a solid all around wheel that I know I wouldn't have to worry about.
Fantastic. What tires would you use?
I like big tires because I like comfort. I'd run a 2.3 or 2.4. I don't know. I always go to Maxxis. They make a great tire and do some great things. And, for me, the most important thing is not what tires I run, but make sure I run the right pressure. And with our wheels, that's going to be for my personal riding style. And with a 2.4, I'd probably be around 16 PSI on the front and 18 to 20 PSI on the rear.
To check out Envy's mountain bike wheels and components, head to Envy. That's ENVE.com. All right, let's wrap this episode. Fatty and I are on social media. You can find Fatty on Twitter @FatCyclist. I am on Instagram @Michael Houghton is the handle. Of course, we are both on that Facebook Leadville 100 mountain bike participants page. A mouthful, but a lot going on there, so worth checking out. And remember, our crew outline is at leadville.fm/crew.
And if you like this show, go wherever you listen and give us a 5-star rating. Please write us a review. To see all the ways you can find the show, just go to leadville.fm. Tell your friends and folks you meet when you're in Leadville. True story. I gave CO2 to a racer who needed it during the stage race, and I told him he could pay me back by listening to the show. So, assuming he kept his end of the bargain, welcome to the podcast, CO2 recipient. You've got more than 100 hours of content to work your way back through. So, I think I got a good deal out of that exchange. Anyway, good luck to everyone in your riding. Keep those rides short. Your racing coming up soon. And of course, your recovery. And above all, this episode in your crewing. Thanks to everyone for listening. And we're going to see you very, very soon at the starting line.